Israel has called its deadly attack on aid workers in Gaza a mistake. This morning, Anthony Albanese spoke with Israeli PM Benjamin Netanyahu, insisting for accountability in the death of an Aussie aid worker.
I conveyed to Prime Minister Netanyahu in very clear terms that Australians were outraged by this death of this fine Australian.
Today, the PM is demanding answers for the death of aid worker Zomi Frankcom in an Israeli airstrike.
Well, Prime Minister Netanyahu did accept responsibility, so there was no equivocation there.
Unfortunately, in the last day, there was a tragic incident of an unintended strike of our forces on innocent people in the Gaza Strip. This happens in wartime.
It was a mistake that followed a misidentification at night during a war in a very complex conditions. It shouldn't have happened.
Zomi was among 7 people killed by Israeli drones as they travelled in a 3-car aid convoy. Vehicles clearly marked along a route that had been coordinated with Israeli Defence Forces.
How could this possibly happen?
That is exactly the question that the government is asking Israel to answer.
Penny Wong refused to be drawn on the question of sanctions against Israel as aid organisations announced they were suspending operations in Gaza, a move that will likely worsen the humanitarian crisis.
For the first time, our colleagues in Gaza have expressed that they cannot continue to work under the unprecedented conditions they're facing, with more than 200 aid workers killed as they delivered humanitarian relief.
Meanwhile, friends, family and colleagues have paid tribute to Zomi, a woman who committed her life to helping those in need.
Hey, this is Zomi and Chef Olivia. We're at the Jiraba Kitchen.
For me, she was like too good to be true. She was the best. She was selfless. She was loving and authentic and curious and open and just all the best things.
So, will there be any accountability for the death of Zomi Frankcom?
Bryan Weaver was a close friend of Zomi, who joins us now from Washington, D.C. Bryan, first of all, our sincerest condolences for the death of your friend. How are you doing?
Thank you very much. No, I appreciate that. It's been a roller coaster all day. You know, I mean, it's been a lot of tears, a lot of beers, a lot of laughter, thinking about like the amazing character of an amazing woman. And you know, while I think the world is a lot darker this evening, I think a lot of us were just appreciated like that we were able to share like this brief time that she was on this planet with us.
Zomi's aid work took her all over the world, Bangladesh, Ukraine. She even volunteered here during the bushfires in Australia. What made her run towards the danger?
You know, I had the great privilege of meeting her in 2018 when she was studying Spanish in Guatemala, Central America. I was actually somebody who was doing basketball camps there, and a volcano erupted. And before the World Central Kitchen arrived in Guatemala, Zomi and her friends were organizing local kitchens to feed survivors of the volcano and aid workers from the mudslides. That essentially just became the direction of her life from 2018, from being like someone studying Spanish. She essentially like saw like every corner of the globe and like saw people at their worst moments of life and met them with grace and beauty. And that's something that like in this current world we need desperately.
We sometimes forget, Bryan, that aid work is really dangerous work. Was she ever scared going into these situations?
I don't want to sound like I'm from the tourism board for Australia, but the amazing thing of Australians is that like you meet the world with courage, compassion, and resilience, and all of those things were embodied in Zomi. You know, like I'm sure she was scared. I know that when she was in the Ukraine, she was scared. I know that when she was in Haiti, she was scared. But every photo she sent me was of beaming smiles of like minor miracles that happened in those moments, the small things when you are able to meet and connect with somebody. And I know that that's what she was thinking when she went to Gaza, is that she was going to have these like small and minor miracles. You know, meeting people at their most desperate hour and being able to like provide them just a moment of comfort, love, and grace. And You know, you can be a cold aid worker. You can be somebody who is just trying to hand a plate of rice across the table to someone who's in a line. What Zomi was able to do was connect with that person, meet them in what we refer to as exquisite mutuality, where you can't really tell the difference between who's the aid worker and who's the aid recipient.
What kind of legacy do you think Zomi would want to leave?
She was a woman who loved flowers. You know, like every couple weeks when we would just exchange, I would ask her, like, where are you in the world? And the things that she would send me were what she was having for lunch, you know, what beer she was drinking, and then whatever flowers she found along the way. So I think for me, the thing that her legacy will be, remember the beautiful things in life, you know, the things that make you happy, the things that make you want to be alive daily, you know, a little bit of food, a little bit of excess, stop and smell the flowers. There's a line which is like, where do my gifts meet the needs of the world? And for Zomi, I just really believed it was like her spirit and warmth and love really met a cold and hardened world in a desperate time. And if anything, I hope that's like what her legacy is those gifts being just brought to a world in need of comfort.
Bryan, thank you for joining us in such an impossible time. Thank you for sharing your friend.
It's my great pleasure. Thank you so much.
I had a fleeting meeting with Zomi when she was out here for the bushfires, and the impact, just in that, it's a very different, much smaller issue, but working with the team of volunteers, World Central Kitchen fed 60,000 meals over 4 weeks. Wow. It's phenomenal. So not just for the people fighting on the far line, but for isolated people who'd lost contact, had no power, had no phone, maybe hadn't seen people for 2 weeks. Amazing. And even after the fire, she was still thinking, what happens to those people without housing? What's going on? It was a really impressive woman.
Yeah, you can see the warmth leaping out of those photos.
Smile.
Yeah.